15-year-old Sadara, who has been arrested multiple times, is not in school, smokes, drinks, has stolen cars, and even stole a safe full of family valuables worth $30,000. Sadara says she gets an adrenaline rush from her life of crime. Her parents, Cynthia and Robert, are currently separated in part because they are at odds over how to parent Sadara, who was just released from a juvenile facility for violating probation. Sadara says she grew up having a painful childhood. She claims she was excited at first when her mother's husband, Robert, stepped in and then adopted her, but claims he went too far with his discipline, spanking her bottom, cutting her hair, and chaining her ankles with padlocks. But Robert believes he can do a better job of parenting than Cynthia, who he says allows their daughter to get away with far too much. Mom claims her daughter's life has become a parent's worst nightmare. Cynthia says she always had a close relationship with her 15-year-old daughter, Sadara, but that changed 3 years ago after Cynthia, her husband, Robert, and Sadara moved to a new state. She claims Sadara stole her car and wrecked it, causing over $5,000 in damage. Earlier this year, she even stole our neighbor's vehicle. She had been drinking and led the police on a high-speed chase. Sadara hit 3 parked cars and fled the scene. Charged with grand theft auto, the teenager spent 9 months in a juvenile detention center. Robert claims Sadara and her friends also took around $30,000 in valuables from their home, including jewelry and 2 loaded handguns, resulting in the SWAT team getting involved. At 15, Sadara's parents, Cynthia and Robert, claim she's a chronic runaway and school dropout who has been getting into trouble for years. The teenager served 9 months in a juvenile detention facility for grand theft auto, then recently went back for a probation violation. Sadara claims that getting into trouble is her reaction to feeling like she has no value in her family. She claims that Robert is a tough disciplinarian who calls her names, has cut her hair, and even shackled her ankles to stop her from sneaking out at night. He treats me like I'm nothing to him, she says. Sadara manipulates everybody in her life, claims Robert. He says his daughter isn't the victim of a traumatic childhood but rather a smart, calculating teenager who needs to be stopped when she acts out. She was raised right. She knows right from wrong, he continues. Woman says the way her husband parents their teen, it affects her self-esteem. Robert and Cynthia say their 15-year-old daughter, Sadara, started getting into trouble 3 years ago after the family relocated to a new state. They say their daughter, a one-time straight-A student, has virtually dropped out of school, run away from home repeatedly, stolen from them and others, and wound up serving 9 months in juvenile detention on a charge of grand theft auto. The couple, who is currently separated, each claim the other's parenting is to blame for Sadara's behaviors. Robert loses it and demands that our daughter act appropriately all the time, says Cynthia, who describes her husband as a no-nonsense disciplinarian. I will call Sadara on her stuff, but Cindy just wants to coddle her, claims Robert. She lets Sadara do what she wants, and it drives me nuts. Cynthia says the way Robert parents, I sometimes think that it affects her self-esteem and it makes her act out even more. Teen claims her father's discipline includes shackling her ankles and calling her names. Sadara says she started getting into trouble 3 years ago when her family relocated to another state. I definitely felt very distant from my parents. They were too busy working while I was home alone or outside trying to find friends, says the 15-year-old. A chronic runaway who admits she smokes, drinks and has spent time in juvenile detention for stealing, Sadara claims her father, Robert, goes too far with his discipline, spanking her, cutting her hair, shackling her ankles with chains, and calling her names. My father called me a lot of names from fat bitch to a lazy whore, continues the teenager. My mom, most of the time, would side with my dad or she wouldn't say anything at all, and I felt degraded and worthless. I felt like I had no value in the family. I got mixed up with the wrong crowd seeking attention since I wasn't finding it in my home. Sadara says that for her, getting into trouble is an addiction. It's something that I feel I cannot stop without any type of help, she claims. Teen claims getting in trouble is her reaction to feeling like she has no value in her family. At 15, Sadara's parents, Cynthia and Robert, claim she's a chronic runaway and school dropout who has been getting into trouble for years. The teenager served 9 months in a juvenile detention facility for grand theft auto, then recently went back for a probation violation. Sadhara claims that getting into trouble is her reaction to feeling like she has no value in her family. She claims that Robert is a tough disciplinarian who calls her names, has cut her hair, and even shackled her ankles to stop her from sneaking out at night. He treats me like I'm nothing to him, she says. Sadhara manipulates everybody in her life, claims Robert. He says his daughter isn't the victim of a traumatic childhood but rather a smart, calculating teenager who needs to be stopped when she acts out. She was raised right. She knows right from wrong, he continues. Cynthia and Robert are currently separated, and Robert says it's because Sadhara doesn't want him there. Does Sadhara admit she's tried to get her parents to break up? I want to change myself, I just don't know how, says teen with multiple arrests. Sadhara admits she's run away from home dozens of times, hangs out with a bad crowd, smokes, drinks, steals and has been in trouble with the law. She claims she's addicted to behaving badly because she doesn't feel like she has any value in her family. I can do what I want as I want, how I please, cause it is my life, and at the end of the day, I have to face the consequences, and nobody else does, says the teen who served a 9-month sentence in juvenile detention center and was recently sent back for a probation violation. On Tuesday's episode, Dr. Phil introduces retired Michigan Circuit Court Judge Mary N. Scary Mary Kurzanutsky to the conversation. The judge is known for her work with both adult and juvenile offenders. What's ahead for her if she stays on this current route, asks Dr. Phil. You know that juvenile detention center that she hated so much? That was a country club, says Kurzanutsky, noting that Sadhara will soon be turning 16, she adds. If the crime is serious enough, then you'll go to the state prison system. I want to change myself, I just don't know how cause I've gotten so far down this path, says the teenager. I know it starts off with not doing that stuff, but it's also trying to get away from just the life in general and finding out how to care again. Does Dr. Phil say he has a plan to help Sadhara turn her life around? Dr. Phil questions just about conduct with production staff. Sadhara says she's been in trouble most of the last 3 years. The 15-year-old admits to smoking, drinking, stealing and repeatedly running away from home. She claims she acts out because her father, Robert, calls her names, has shackled her ankles to prevent her from sneaking out at night and treats her like she's nothing to him. Robert admits he's a strict disciplinarian. He says that's because Sadhara needs to straighten up her act. On Tuesday's episode, Dr. Phil asks Robert, "Are you coming here seeking solutions?" "Yes, I am," says Robert. "I'm questioning that because your conduct since you have been here does not suggest to me that you're taking it seriously," replies Dr. Phil. Why a teenager says she fears she could end up in jail for the rest of her life. "I miss the wonderful, bubbly girl that she used to be," says Cynthia of her 15-year-old daughter, Sadhara. She says she wants her daughter back the way she was before Sadhara started running away from home, stealing cars, and getting arrested. If things don't change and her life continues to spiral in this direction, Cynthia continues, "I fear that I'm going to get a phone call that she's dead." Sadhara claims she wants to change, but says she doesn't know how. "My greatest fear is that the next time I get in trouble I may not be able to wiggle my way around them, and I'll end up sitting in jail for the rest of my life," says the teen. "I'm tired of hurting everyone else, including myself." When Dr. Phil refers Sadhara to Turnabout Ranch for an opportunity to change her self-destructive behaviors, will she accept the offer?
I miss the wonderful, bubbly girl that she used to be. I would love to have my daughter Sadhara back.
Sadhara hasn't always been like this. She was an honors class student, straight A's, highly intelligent. It breaks my heart to see somebody with so much potential not living up to it.
If things don't change and her life continues to spiral in this direction, I fear that I'm going to get a phone call that she's dead.
My greatest fear is that the next time I get in trouble, I may not be able to wiggle my way around them, and I'll end up sitting in jail for the rest of my life. I'm tired of hurting everyone else, including myself.
Your personality is really key here. A lot of research says your personality is formed by the age of 7. And that by that time, it's pretty static and it doesn't change. Some people say that at 30 you can still have some fluidity, But a lot of people say that by the time you're 7, your core personality is pretty set. And there are 5 characteristics to that personality. Openness. Just kind of how open you are to the world, to new ideas. And that tends to decline in both men and women with age. And then the second one is conscientiousness. And that increases for both men and women in the 20s. You become more organized, more planful, more attentive to things in your 20s. And then the third one is extroversion. And it's higher with young women, but it declines with age. And then next is agreeableness. And that increases with men and women in their 30s, because you're kind of through raging against the machine. And then next is neuroticism, alienation, morale, and satisfaction. And those are situational. Okay? Now, right now, alienation is very high for you, right?
Yes, sir.
That's a big part of your personality. You're alienated from your family. You're alienated from school. You're alienated from the world.
From myself even, I feel.
Come with me. All right, first, the first 5 to 7 years were really unstable for you.
Yes.
Abandonment and confusion.
Yes, sir.
And one thing you wanted at that point was you really wanted a father.
Yes.
At 7, you're adopted by Robert, and you hope that you get a father figure, but instead you get an abusive, authoritarian disciplinarian.
Yes.
This became critical for you, and you hoped to get it here when this happened, but it didn't. You start to feel powerless because your mother, in your words, is distracted.
Yes.
And she's not protecting you against all of this. And that's when all of this starts. And you guys wonder why she's doing the things she's doing. That's why she's doing it. You start doing high-risk behaviors. Because let's face it, what do you have to lose?
Nothing.
You feel devalued. These are words out of your mouth.
Yes.
She deserves a family, so I will leave if I have to so she can be happy. That's what you said.
And I still beat it.
The street becomes your comfort zone. Your comfort zone is danger. So you get diagnosed with ODD, depression, bipolar, and PTSD. No treatment, but jail.
It's correct in every way. And I know I need to change, definitely.
But I want you to understand one thing. At least one person in your life has taken the time not to judge you, but to figure you out.
Yeah.
I'm not judging you. I'm trying to figure this out.
And I thank you for that.